It's American, it's craft, it's the hardest working beer there is. Today we're drinking Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. Hi guys, it's Jim here from drtangenstein.com with another episode of Beers of the British Isles. On today's episode, we're going to be drinking Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. Now, there's really no need for me to tell you where I got this from or how much it was, because you can get this beer absolutely everywhere. And if they don't sell it in the place that you're shopping in, maybe you should go somewhere else. Because this little bottle, this squat 355ml brown bottle with the evergreen label, isn't just an American pale ale, it's the American pale ale, okay? This beer was first brewed in the 1980s, 1980 in fact, and it basically defined a whole style of beer, American pale ale. Now if you look at it on paper, if you were to read the specs of this, it looks like an absolute bog standard beer. You know, average ABV is 5.6%. Average IBU, 38. Average, you know, I was going about the ratio of bitterness to alcohol, 0.7. That's about average as well. The hops they use are pretty average. Cascade. The malt bill they use, pretty run of the mill, just pale ale and crystal. This beer, on paper, is completely unremarkable. So why does everyone rave about it? Let's dive in and find out. We're all poured. You'll be happy to know that I'm drinking this beer cold. As I'm sure that you would too. So the first thing I'm going to point out is that this is an American pale ale, and yes, that's the correct colour. So it's a very light amber to golden colour. It's not straw, it's not yellow, it's not, you know, it's not pale really in comparison to other beers out there today. It's actually reasonably, it's got a decent hue to it, and you got to wonder, you know, with that average malt bill, how have they accomplished this? Well, I'm guessing they've probably put a reasonable amount of crystal malt in there, because that kind of tends to darken the beer a little bit. So that's the appearance. The head doesn't really seem to be sticking around, but I did pour it quite flat. Like I said, this bottle, this cool squat little bottle, is quite big. It's 355ml. It's a little bigger than our UK bottles usually are, 330ml. So I had to pour it a little bit flat. So let's see what lies beneath. Okay, so the aroma doesn't really jump down your throat. Remember that this is an American pale ale, not an American IPA, so you can afford to be a little less aromatic on this one. So the aroma it's not very citrusy. It's citrusy, but it's not over the top. Citrusy and yeah, kind of piney. It just sort of lingers in your nose a little bit there. Let's dig in. Okay. So the hop flavor is basically exactly the same as the aroma. Kind of citrusy, border on tropical, but sort of like they kind of meet in the middle. It's very much a citrus. The pininess in the flavor doesn't really carry through. Like I say, it wasn't that strong in the aroma either, so that's probably what it is. But what you're really hit with up front is just a real sharp crispness. Actually quite dry, in fact. I mean, this is obviously cold, but man, that is such a refreshing first sip. Very, very nice, clean bitterness. Yeah, that's great. So it's very nice. It's like I said, it's very clean bitterness, but there is residual sweetness. Like I said, pretty average IBU to alcohol ratio. So there is some residual sweetness. You know, if it was a little bit high, this is 0.7. If it was a little bit higher, then you would imagine it would be a little bit more bitter. But that's just got a nice little soft edge on the end there. The aftertaste you're left with is like you're definitely left with the hops and not the sweetness, which I think is good, which I think is kind of what you wanted in this beer, particularly because you want this to be refreshing, clean, down it goes, done. So the flavor that you're left with really is a very subtle citrus flavor, just lingering at the end, but nothing clings to your mouth. Once you've swallowed, it's gone. Now, the brewery that makes this beer, Sierra Nevada, are based in Chico, California, a place that I'd never heard of until Sierra Nevada came into my life. The brewery was started by a guy called Ken Grossman, not the sauce guy. I know who you're thinking of. No, Ken Grossman started this brewery in 1980. He was a massive home brewer, loved homebrewing, loved making beers. And he just decided one day to literally build his own brewery by hand. He just thought, I can do it on a small scale. Let's just make it a little bit bigger, churn out a bit more beer, which I think is just such a cool story. And it's such an American story as well, isn't it? Like, well, you know, I'll just do it myself then. I think that's really cool. So he built his brewery in 1980, Chico, California, and just for some reason, this thing, the pale ale, just took off. Now, it's not hard to see why it took off because it's so well done. I think the real question is, why had nobody done it before? Why was it now in that place that it took off? I guess we'll never know. Another thing that I will just mention that these guys did that just kind of came on the corner of my radar was so in last year, 2019, I think it was. California wildfires basically swept California. It was very, very sad. You know, a lot of places basically burned to ash. Sierra Nevada started this campaign to try to rebuild a town called Paradise, and in doing so, they donated they made a recipe for a Paradise ale, and they donated all the ingredients required to make the beer to breweries all across America, with the proviso that any take-ins from the beer went to this foundation. I just think that when I heard that, I just thought it was such a good way to put not only your skill, but your resource into making money for charity. I just thought that was an absolutely great, commendable thing that they did. To sum up Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, let's just go through it one more time. Yep. Very citrusy, almost lemony. Yeah, there's actually a real lemon note to that now. Yeah, it's both clean and dry and sweet at the same time. Somehow they managed to really toe that line between residual sweetness and the clean bitterness. The hop flavor is very, it's both, it's an intense, there's an intensity to the flavor in that whatever the flavor is, it's turned up to 11, but the flavor itself isn't mega intense. So it isn't like a, say a mosaic hop would be, where the flavor is just so strong. Cascade here has been used so well, and it's a real good example of what Cascade would taste like in a beer. The appearance, like I said, pretty average. This is a great beer, and I keep using this word average, average, average. Everything's average about this beer. And I mean that as the highest compliment you can ever get. Because the only reason that this beer is so average is because every other American pale ale after this has tried to, at least in some way, replicate it, copy it, take from it, learn from it. That's why this beer is so average. It's absolutely pioneering. It got it so spot on that it was completely undeniable for generations to come. You're talking a 40-year-old recipe, and I would still pick that over many beers on tap in a pub. I don't like to rate beers out of 10 because everything usually ends up at about a 7. What I will do is say that if this beer was a song, and definitely check this out as you sip your cold Sierra Nevada, it would be Go Your Own Way by Fleetwood Mac, because that's what Ken did in 1980. That's what Sierra Nevada does, and god damn it, that's a good song. So head down to wherever beer is sold, grab yourself a Sierra Nevada pale ale and enjoy. If you like this beer, like I've said over and over again, there are others that are similar to this. Head down to your local bottle shop and tell them you want an American pale ale and see what they got. In the meantime, guys, cheers.